And then shall that wicked be revealed. The Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is out of the workings of sin.
Is extremely dire right now. Israel has dealt, along with the United States, very crippling blows to to Iran, but Iran now has targeted the Dimona nuclear power plant in Israel. And according to this video right here, it is leaking radioactive material. PLA military updates here. They're saying that it's leaking radioactive material. They targeted the Dimona nuclear power plant. Israel had evacuated it just minutes before, I guess, they knew missiles were headed that direction there. And Israel's defenses are not stopping the barrages that are hitting the Dimona nuclear power plant. So it is a very grave situation in Israel right now. Not to mention the huge number of missiles that were falling down inside of. Let me pull this back up to the right spot here, though, where I was at. We are seeing massive numbers of missiles that were coming in to Israel today. Over 20 ballistic missiles were launched by Iran toward Israel in its latest wave of retaliatory strikes. I'm sorry, that's June 2025. My apology. Let's see here. There we go. Here, that's 2024. Let me find the right one here. A lot of things have been scrubbed. They're trying to keep from people seeing the damages and things that are coming in. Let me just go to regular home because I've been seeing a lot of footage there. Iran has reportedly wiped out the U.S. naval base in Bahrain. We saw that earlier. We reported that earlier to you.
Let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim, Rucha HaKodash, and double honors to the elder apostles and the bishops of Great Millstone. Honors as well to you, brethren. Shalom to you, brothers and sisters that support the truth. Shalom to you, strangers, you Israelite foreigners that are scattered abroad and followed other customs till you woke up to the truth. And some of you may look like even these other nations, right? And shalom to the elect, peace to the elect. So anyway, I got this video. It's not technically substantiated credibility. I'm not sure. Well, that's what I read. I went and did the research, and they said it wasn't credible or it wasn't verified that these things happened in Dimona, Israel, where they kicked the so-called black Hebrew Israelites out of. If this is the case, the Lord blessed you to come back to your captivity, right? We had no business over there, number one. So, and also, let me read a scripture real quick that I have to read, Matthew 24:6. And this man also said the president of Israel is in Germany somewhere. I don't know how true that is when all this went down. Anyway, it's hard to believe any media sources nowadays. There's certain ones you can go to that's credible. And then you got to understand, they could be hiding media too. Well, we know they do that. It's like an embarrassment. They don't want to let everybody know that. Anyway, Matthew 24:6. And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. This is what you see. Because I'm also going to show you that Iran is supposed to have actually happened to them as well. But it was unverified, unaccredited. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So we still got the prophecies to go on. Revelation 13, the mark, the mark of the beastie, right? And then you have what you call the Chipio, right? The mark of the Chipio, which I believe down in Brazil, because I dealt with some of their electronics, dealing with that. That's, pretty much it. But they have a line called Chipio, right? So I guess that's, when I saw that, when I got had a car amplifier and it said Chipio, I said, okay, it's chip. I opened it up, and guess what was in it? A bunch of chips. They got a lot of, people say the mark of the Chipio is impossible. What do they say? You can take it back out. All these things that is so small. How can you store all the information on it? Because there's a server. The same way that damn Chipio is on your credit card. They don't really store anything. It passes through a server. But of course, these people are not, they don't understand very much of what's going on. But it's easy to see. And we got to understand, when the mark literally comes out, it'll probably be much smaller than a grain of rice. You ain't pulling that out. Think about how far technology's increased. Think about it. Those little chips in your phone, they do a lot. And guess what? Those chips in the phones, those Chipios in your phone, they store your credit card information, your bank accounts. In fact, your life is on them few Chipios in your phone. But anyway, I want to go to a couple of websites. This is Jerusalem Post. It says, and then you heard Trump. He says, we don't want nobody making anything, but we can. In other words, we're allowed to protect ourselves, but we want to be the greatest nation, meaning we want to be the most resourceful nation, dominant nation, and then even in our households, this nation has an issue with a man being dominant in his home with his own woman and children. But these people can dominate the whole globe. And it's funny that how they kicked out, raped, robbed, murdered, torched, did all these things. And what American history does is, because it's past 50 years, it's acceptable. Although if you commit a crime 50 years prior and get caught, say such a murder charge, it's not acceptable. They're still bringing you to justice. So what we're saying is you will still be brought to justice no matter what. Let me get a scripture before I read this post again. This is Psalms 7. And let me go to, is it 13? Let me go to, he have also prepared for him the instruments of death. He ordained his arrows against the persecutors. Right? Behold, and this goes to Revelation, is it 12 and 12? The devil come down because he know he have but a short time, which I believe is in Job 20 and 5. But anyway, it says, behold, he travaileth with iniquity. This is high level, this is lawlessness. Right? He travaileth with lawlessness, and have conceived mischief, which is a high level of evil, and brought forth falsehood. He made a pit and digged it, and is fallen into the ditch which he made. Right? That was in the book I can't remember, the woman of Israel, and I can't remember what book that was. I think it was Haman in the book of Esther, where they hung him on the gallows that I believe he set for Mordecai. And this is how the Lord works, man. Ecclesiastes 3 says, what does it says? That the Lord requireth that which is past. Jeremiah 30:16 says, all they that devour shall be devoured. Every one of them shall go into captivity. I mean, this is hypocritical. Then you get some agents that people try to come back to the land that their ancestors was from, and you kick their asses right back out. I mean, that's set up by the Lord, though. And that goes into Numbers. I was at 35 or 25, where he says, what does it say? When someone goes to the city of their refuge, you shall not destroy the land that ye are, because blood defileth the land. And this is what they do, right? His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealings shall come down upon his own pate. So I decided to look up this word pate. It says top of the head, unknown origin, shortened Latin for his head, for his own head, pate. It goes says a pie. How things change. But basically it goes back to the top of his head. That's what that's talking about. So let's go to the Jerusalem Post. Iran's ambassador and UN nuclear watchdog said Iran's sprawling nuclear facility at Natanz was struck during U.S.-Israel military operations against the Islamic Republic. Again, they attacked Iran's peaceful, safeguarded nuclear facilities yesterday, Raza Najib told reporters on Monday at a meeting of the International Atomic Energy Agency, 35-nation board of governors. But it goes on to say, however, to date, Israel has repeatedly refused to name any nuclear sites it may have attacked. Well, of course. When you understand the diabolical nature of Esau and how they set up themselves at a particular time in history, a little bit, the plan was back to World War I, believe it or not. But in the time of 1948, to get themselves in that situation, they would have to tell the people, once they bring them over, whip them, beat them, who all had Hebrew names, by the way. But of course, media say it's unsubstantiated. We can't prove it. But I got the records. They didn't lie about that one. And it's too close. And then some of them will say, like the Christians say, they're not real Hebrew names. Right, because some of us adopted other forms of religions. But you think they're going to really post the real Hebrew name? In fact, you're talking about English translations. So if they don't know how to read the right Paleo Hebrew off of this translation into the English, it's called reflective translations. It'll definitely change in translation. Anyway, the extent of damage to Iran's nuclear facilities caused by current military conflict remains unclear, as Monday night, following potentially contradictory statements from Iran, the IAEA, Israel, and U.S. on this issue. So we got to know Yahweh is stirring this up. Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is stirring this up, man. This is where you get, as I quoted or read in Matthew 24, you shall hear wars and rumors of wars, right? And ye shall hear wars and rumors of war, and see ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So we want to look up rumors. This says an unsubstantiated report, a gossip, hearsay, also tidings, news, current report without foundation. I remember there was a scripture in Ezekiel, I can't remember it. This is years, maybe 12, 13 years, that it spoke of that, about the wars. How prophecies will go forth and it'll seem like to the people it doesn't exist. It's like bending the hanger, and then after a while, people be like, they go back into their comfortable state. This is why the scripture says they will be eating and drinking and giving to marriage until a flood comes and take them all away. That all makes sense, right? Anyway, that was that report. This is also, I got this war waitings as Israel and U.S. pound Iran. So we know this is actual fact, more than likely. I mean, with AI and everything happening, you don't know what's what, but this is more likely true events, right? And I remember they bombed somewhere in Africa, a Christian community. You know, I mean, and they're Christian, right? This is Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism roots go back to the Reformation or wherever, to the Protestants, and how they wanted to convert slaves. Well, no, they didn't want to convert slaves. The evangelicals and the certain churches wanted to convert slaves because they would be better slaves. But they said in the Protestant community, as that guy Adam Wilson is a Protestant, by the way, and Vocab Malone is what's his name? I can't remember his name. The guy John Calvin, he's a Calvinist, and all of them was all about having slaves. See, this whole thing about these Israelites who saying those other people, let me say Christians who saying the other people in the land are the true people of God, is acknowledging that you're a slave and you're under them. Although they teach as a Christian, it doesn't matter as long as you believe in Jesus, then you're saved. If that's the case, what the hell do we need any of them for? Or any Jew or anybody claim to be Israelites? Shouldn't everybody just be converted to Christianity? Which Jews were Christians, by the way. You know, a lot of so-called black Christians, they're worse. So-called white Christians are a whole lot sharper than so-called black Christians. That's what I've learned. They go deeper into prophecy, they have deeper understanding, and they even know that they're not the people of the Bible because of the diaspora. They even know this, man. But not the black, grimy, effeminate Jake. Anyway, Proverbs 11:5, the righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. Yeah, the missiles. Everything you done, that's how you're going to fall, right? You see the end of his age. Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of that followeth it. I looked at a video on Elder Apostle Tahar channel about the hitman. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The man hit. I guess that's the best way I could say. And he was saying how we were the real people of the Bible. He also, I read in a book that he was saying, like, because he was kind of like them, but he was saying, well, look, if they want to be black, let's put them in the situation. Y'all know what I'm going at, and make them black. This is what I read or I saw. Again, don't know how true that statement was. You know, you can check it out on Elder Apostle Tahar's channel. He just put up the short clip. Obviously, you can't even speak on that, man. That tells you who's in truth and who's in captivity. Because they'll sit up there and tell you that we must come under them because they're the olive branch. This is why they gave themselves the name Olive Complexion. I mean, it gets more weird. Anyway, the righteousness of the upright shall deliver them by the transgressors. But the transgressors shall be taken in their own naughtiness. Then the wicked man dieth with expectation his expectation shall perish. Like, right, his NWO. This is what brings us to the book of Obadiah 1:18. The house of Jacob shall be a fire, the house of Joseph a flame, but the house of Esau for stubble. And there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, because the Lord has spoken it. We done read that so much. We that's in the truth, that's really on fire in this truth, that understand the scriptures, we really don't need to read the scriptures. We only read this so you out there can see what we're putting together. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes with a scripture like this, it'll slip. But I do a search and boom. Okay, that's it right there. But the transgressors shall be taken by his own naughtiness. Now, you don't have to know every scripture. I'm not, You got you got jakes that knew all the scriptures that wasn't even righteous. It's how faithful are you, man. That's what matters. You know, we all one body. When a wicked man dieth, his expectation shall perish, and the hope of the unjust men perish. The righteous is delivered out of trouble. And this is what we're looking for. This is why we're warning you, as Ezekiel 3:17 say. Warn the wicked man from his wickedness. And the wicked come in his stead. Right? And the wicked cometh in his stead. Right? These people are coming all to captivity. It ain't going to be no non-Israelites going to receive salvation. And as I said before, the non-Israelites would not have accepted us with them. They didn't open their arms and say, come be with us. Get off those slave ships. Come out of Babylon. Now, Cyrus, through the Spirit, helped us build the temple. But for the most part, we served our slavery before the time we came out, you know. And Esau, you did all this so you can, you can get destroyed. And the sick part about Esau, what type of person steals a whole nation's identity, make it their own, then give them fake images of Jesus because they understand the real Messiah, Yahushua, never looked like that. So that was another tactic to throw us off. They could have clearly, if they didn't believe in the Messiah, you would think they could have clearly kept the so-called black Messiah. Well, why didn't they keep the so-called black Messiah? Or at least let us worship the so-called black Messiah? Because this is all strategic, psyops. Now everybody says the color don't matter. But the so-called white man, Putin, pulls it out of the votes and shows you color do matter. But our own black Christians, and I just want to call them black, because it just means death, void of light. They are black. I don't even want to call a Christian so-called black. You just black. Not the color black, but in your spirit is just dark. No light. When a wicked man die, okay, let me go on. The righteous is delivered out of trouble, and the wicked cometh in his stead. And a hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor, right? But through knowledge shall he be just delivered. Now this brings me to Daniel. I mean, we can go on, but I want to make this video short. This is Daniel 8:25. This is like one of my favorite scriptures. I'm pulling it up so you can read it right here. Let me see here. Anyway, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. Right, through slavery. Right, through the Housing Removal Act, the breaking up of families, WIC, welfare. That was targeted for them, but then they used it to better and uplift the woman just to destroy the family. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. Yeah, do you know it was I'll tell you it was only over 300 treaties they broke and they never kept. Do you know it was over 1,000 treaties that they broke and never kept? And do you know to this day, this is why Iran, the Palestinians, and all these things that's happening, that they get to kick out of lands and destroy and take their homes and say they're doing it in the name of God that these black Christians love. They didn't even keep the treaties that they had. They allowed them to stay there along with inherited rights. But then years later, through gradualism, they took the inherited rights and kicked their asses out of there, man. Oh yeah, what happened to our 40 acres and a mule, so to speak? Our 40 acres is prison. And a mule, right, is our hard ass just working and to get nothing. That's crazy, man. Anyway, that's all I have on that. Shalom.